In the shadowed recesses of forgotten halls, where light dared not tread, a gathering unlike any other took place. Bound by blood and ancient oaths, they assembled under the flickering glow of aged chandeliers, their eyes reflecting the weight of generations past. They were not mere leaders, nor simple stewards of power. They were guardians of a legacy that transcended time, descendants of the first to walk this earth with divine purpose. Whispers filled the room, carried on hushed breaths as secrets of the old world were exchanged. Names of the ancient ones were uttered with reverence, their bloodlines traced back to the dawn of civilization. Each had been marked, not by chance, but by design, chosen to uphold a prophecy long hidden from the prying eyes of the unworthy. Their existence was not just privilege, it was a responsibility etched into their very bones, a sacred duty that had been passed down like a flame in the darkness. In the center of the grand hall, an elder rose, his presence commanding silence. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the room with the authority of ages. He spoke of the prophecy, of the convergence that was to come, a moment where blood and destiny would entwine to herald the return of the one spoken of in hushed tones, a gathering of power, veiled in secrecy, bound by oaths that transcended mortal understanding. "The signs are clear," he intoned, voice steady and unyielding. "The awakening draws near. The bloodlines are converging, and with them, the return of the one destined to rise above the shadows." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall, eyes gleaming with anticipation and fear. Each knew what this meant. Each understood the stakes. There was no turning back, no path that led away from what was foretold. Outside, the winds howled with an otherworldly whisper, as if echoing the secrets shared within. The clock had begun to tick, and with it, the countdown to a destiny sealed long before their time. Beneath the sprawling roots of an ancient oak, hidden far from the eyes of the unworthy, lay the stone chamber where the ancestral pact was first forged. Time had worn the markings on its walls, yet the essence of power remained, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath layers of stone and soil. The elders spoke of this place with a reverence that bordered on fear, an oath-bound sanctuary where bloodlines intertwined their destinies with whispers of the divine. Generations ago, the first of the chosen bloodlines gathered here under a moonless sky. It was said that the stars themselves vanished that night, as if to shield the ceremony from prying eyes. Flames flickered from iron braziers, casting long shadows against the granite walls etched with symbols older than written word. The air had been thick with incense and the murmurs of ancient tongues, prayers woven with promises of loyalty and sacrifice. At the heart of the ceremony, each leader stepped forward, hands extended over the stone altar that bore the mark of the first covenant. Blood was drawn, not taken in violence, but offered in unity. As the crimson droplets touched the stone, a light flickered from beneath, illuminating the carved sigils in hues of silver and gold. It was then that the pact was sealed, a binding of souls and destinies that stretched across centuries. The elders believed this act tethered their bloodlines to forces beyond mortal comprehension, guardianship over secrets that could shatter empires if ever unveiled. Through the ages, this ritual continued in silence and shadow, each successor bound by the same unyielding oath. They were sworn to protect the prophecy and the one who would one day emerge from their lineage. Whispers of this chosen figure lingered in every generation, a shadow that loomed larger with each passing year. But none dared to speak of it openly, for fear that the very utterance of destiny's name would set events into motion before their time. As centuries passed, the pact remained unbroken, its guardians hidden in plain sight. Kings, queens, scholars, and visionaries, all bearing the mark of the ancestral pact. And now, as the signs began to ripple across the world once more, the bloodlines stirred from their silence, knowing that the time of convergence was near. In the grand libraries of forgotten cities and the shadowed vaults of hidden estates, secrets of the ancient families were preserved like relics of a bygone era. These families, scattered across continents, yet bound by an invisible thread, were the keepers of knowledge too dangerous for the uninitiated. To the outside world, they appeared as mere aristocrats, scholars, and influencers, but beneath their polished veneers lay generations of guarded wisdom, scripts, artifacts, and scrolls that chronicled the rise and fall of civilizations. Among these sacred texts, one manuscript stood out above the rest, the Codex of the First Awakening. Bound in leather that had long since darkened with age, its pages were inscribed with symbols indecipherable to any but the chosen bloodlines. It spoke of prophecies whispered by seers long since turned to dust, of celestial alignments that would signal the return of the one they had been waiting for. Each family held a fragment of the Codex, passed down through generations, guarded with lives and sealed with oaths of silence. Their gatherings were rare and always shrouded in secrecy. By candlelight in hidden chambers, the heads of these families would convene, sharing only what was necessary to maintain the fragile balance of power. For them, it was not merely tradition, it was survival. Knowledge of the ancient prophecies was a double-edged sword, powerful enough to shape empires, yet dangerous enough to invoke the wrath of forces that had watched from the shadows for millennia. The families were not without their divisions. Some believed the time for secrecy had passed, that the chosen one's emergence would require unity and open declaration. Others feared exposure, believing that unveiling the prophecy too soon would trigger a reckoning they were not prepared to face. Yet, despite their differences, one truth remained. The bloodlines were bound, and the Codex would one day call upon its rightful heir. Hidden within vaults, guarded by ancient wards and intricate locks, the fragments of the Codex waited. Each page held mysteries written in blood and ink, stories of celestial gates and ethereal guardians. The families knew that when the signs aligned, the prophecy would no longer be a whisper, but a thunderous call to arms. Beneath layers of dust and centuries of silence, the hidden prophecy lay concealed within the heart of a forgotten archive. It was not bound in leather or etched onto stone, but preserved on sheets of translucent vellum, its script shimmering faintly with an ethereal glow. Those who dared to glimpse its contents spoke of words that moved as if alive, rearranging themselves to reveal deeper meanings to those deemed worthy. It was said that only the bloodlines could interpret its ever-shifting passages, for the language was older than the written word, an echo from the dawn of creation. The prophecy spoke in riddles, intertwining fate and choice, light and shadow. It foretold of a convergence, a moment in time when the ancient families would be summoned from their secrecy, bound by a force greater than their oaths. At the heart of this revelation was the Chosen One, a figure not born but awakened, The prophecy described this awakening as the ignition of a dormant flame, hidden within the essence of the bloodlines, waiting for the perfect alignment of stars and souls. Scattered across the world, the fragments of the hidden prophecy were guarded with zealous devotion. Some were hidden behind false walls in grand libraries, others sealed in vaults beneath sprawling estates. Only the elders of each family knew the precise locations, and their knowledge was never written, only spoken during rites of passage in darkened chambers, far from prying eyes. There were whispers that the prophecy did not simply predict the return of the Chosen One, but also the rise of those who would seek to extinguish their light. The Covenant of the Veil, a shadowed organization known only to the highest ranks of the bloodlines, existed solely to prevent this revelation. Their methods were ruthless, their loyalty unyielding. For them, the prophecy represented both salvation and destruction, a delicate balance that could shatter the fabric of power if mishandled. In the hidden places of the world, the signs began to emerge. Symbols appeared where none had been before, carved into stone, burned into wood, whispered on the winds. The bloodlines took notice, their eyes turning towards the heavens for the alignment that would signal the beginning of the awakening. And as the stars began to shift, the hidden prophecy stirred within its resting place, its words glowing brighter, calling out to the ones bound by its promise. The time of shadows was drawing to a close, and the age of revelation was on the horizon. The elders spoke of it only in whispers, an ancient truth that bound the bloodlines not just to prophecy, but to something far greater. Hidden within the lineage of each chosen family was a divine connection, a thread woven through time that linked them to the very essence of creation. To understand it was to glimpse the hand of the divine itself, a sacred bond that transcended mortal understanding. Among their guarded scrolls and sacred texts, one name was written with reverence and secrecy: Yeshua. It was believed that Yeshua's bloodline carried the purest connection to the source, a lineage that branched out across continents, hidden within the families that kept watch over the prophecy. His teachings were more than mere words. They were codes, keys to unlocking the potential buried deep within the chosen ones. The elders taught that Yeshua spoke often of awakening, of light piercing through the veil of darkness, and of a time when the hidden would be brought to light. Within the sacred archives of the bloodlines, a fragment of ancient scripture described a moment when Yeshua spoke to his followers in whispers under the cover of night. "The kingdom is not of this world," he had said, his eyes reflecting the light of stars unseen. "But it is within you. Through the blood the truth shall be revealed, and the path will be made clear." These words had been etched into stone and guarded through generations, a reminder that their purpose was not just protection, but preparation. The families understood that their blood was a vessel, a conduit for something far greater than themselves. Rituals were performed in secret, rites of passage that connected each heir to this divine thread. It was said that during these ceremonies, visions would come, brief glimpses of radiant light, of ethereal figures that watched from beyond the veil, guiding, protecting, and whispering truths yet to be uncovered. But with this connection came danger. There were those who hunted the bloodlines, seeking to sever the link and extinguish the prophecy before it could come to pass. These adversaries operated in shadows, moving through corridors of power with invisible hands. They knew that if the Chosen One awakened, the balance would shift, and secrets long buried would be laid bare. Yet, the bloodlines remained steadfast, their faith unyielding. For they knew that destiny was not a whisper. It was a roar, waiting to be unleashed. And as the signs continued to appear, the elders whispered the name of Yeshua with renewed reverence, knowing that the time of awakening drew near. Deep beneath the surface of everyday life, where power is exchanged behind closed doors and decisions are made far from public view, the Council of Shadows operated with impunity. Its members were the unseen architects of influence, threading their will through governments, corporations, and secret societies. To the untrained eye, they were phantoms, untouchable, untraceable. But to the Bloodlines, they were a known threat, the dark force that had worked tirelessly to disrupt the prophecy for generations. The Council had existed as long as the Bloodlines themselves, a counterbalance that thrived on chaos and subterfuge. Their roots ran deep, entwined with monarchies and empires, shaping the course of history with a single whisper or the stroke of a pen. They were the keepers of shadows, ensuring that the light of revelation never pierced too deeply. For them, secrecy was survival, and control was the currency of power. Their gatherings were held in fortified sanctuaries, hidden from satellite view and protected by wards that repelled even the most skilled seekers. Here, draped in darkness and cloaked in anonymity, they shared their findings, reports of bloodline activity, signs of the prophecy's unfolding, and whispers of the Chosen One's imminent return. Their purpose was singular: prevent the awakening at all costs. Yet, even within their iron grip on secrecy, fractures began to form. In recent months, signs had emerged that not all within the council were aligned. Some spoke in hushed tones of ancient promises and debts, yet unpaid. Others questioned the price of their secrecy, fearing that their suppression of truth was beginning to unravel the very fabric of reality. There were whispers of defectors, those who had seen the signs and could no longer deny what was coming. Despite these murmurs of dissent, the council moved forward with calculated precision. Plans were set into motion, networks activated, and whispers of war began to ripple through the ranks. They would not wait for the Bloodlines to act first. Their spies were dispatched to disrupt the gathering of ancient texts, to fracture the fragile alliances of the chosen families, and to seek out the Chosen One before the prophecy could reach fulfillment. For the Council of Shadows, failure was not an option. Their existence hinged on the silence of the Bloodlines and the burial of the prophecy. And as their agents moved silently through the world, the Bloodlines prepared, knowing that the shadows were closing in, but destiny was already in motion. Far from the prying eyes of the world, deep within the sacred halls of a forgotten monastery, the awakening had begun. It was not marked by grand proclamations or the clash of armies, but by a stirring, a ripple through the Bloodlines that could be felt by those attuned to its call. The elders of each family gathered in secret, their hands clasped and heads bowed as incantations were whispered in tongues older than written word. This was the awakening of the chosen legacy, a rite that had been preserved through generations, waiting for the time when destiny would call forth its heir. The monastery itself was a relic of a bygone age, its stone walls etched with symbols that predated even the oldest of their texts. It was here that the codex of the First Awakening was kept, protected by wards and sacred seals that could only be unlocked by the touch of those bound to the Bloodlines. The elders moved with reverence, their footsteps soft against the stone floors as they approached the altar where the codex rested. Its surface shimmered with a light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with their chanting, as if the words themselves were breathing life into its pages. The awakening required more than just ritual. It required sacrifice. Each elder stepped forward, offering a drop of blood upon the altar, binding themselves once again to the legacy they had sworn to protect. As the final drop touched the stone, a surge of energy rippled through the hall, illuminating the walls with symbols that glowed with ethereal light. The codex opened on its own, its pages turning slowly as if guided by an unseen hand. Ancient texts spoke of this moment, the ignition of the chosen legacy, where the hidden gifts of the bloodlines would awaken within the rightful heir. It was believed that this heir would possess abilities that transcended the natural order, unlocking doors that had been sealed since the dawn of time. Sight beyond sight, understanding of the hidden, and the power to bend reality to the will of destiny. These were not mere fables. They were truths encoded within their very essence, awaiting the touch of the one who was destined to rise. As the light dimmed and the ritual came to an end, the elders exchanged knowing glances. The awakening had begun, and with it, the whispers of prophecy grew louder. Somewhere out in the world, the chosen one stirred, their legacy calling out from the depths of time. The bloodlines prepared for what was to come, knowing that shadows would soon rise to challenge the light. In the hidden archives of the oldest bloodlines, there existed a collection of scrolls known only as the Sacred Scrolls of Destiny. Bound in leather and sealed with crimson wax, they were preserved through ages of war, upheaval, and secrecy. These scrolls were said to contain revelations that could shift the balance of power, words that held the key to understanding the Chosen One's purpose and the events that would precede their rise. Among the cryptic symbols and arcane verses, one name was etched with divine reverence: Yeshua. The elders of the bloodlines spoke of Yeshua not merely as a figure of history, but as a bearer of celestial truth. His teachings, shrouded in parables and symbols, were said to contain hidden wisdom that only the awakened could truly comprehend. One particular passage in the scrolls recounted a moment where Yeshua stood before his followers and spoke of the great return. "The light of the world shall not be hidden," he had said, his voice echoing across time. "In the appointed hour, the veils shall be lifted, and what was hidden shall be revealed." For generations, the bloodlines guarded this prophecy, understanding that its fulfillment would signal the emergence of the Chosen One. The scrolls were brought forth only during rites of passage, their contents read aloud in the ancient tongue, binding each heir to the legacy that flowed through their veins. Some who listened spoke of visions, of gates opening between worlds, of light piercing through shadows, and of a figure draped in ethereal glow, carrying the weight of destiny upon their shoulders. It was during one such gathering that a revelation came. As the elders recited the verses, the wax seal of one of the scrolls cracked without touch, its cover slowly unfurling. Gasps filled the room as light poured from its surface, illuminating the chamber with a brilliance that transcended the earthly. Symbols danced upon the walls, shifting and reforming until the words became clear. "The time is near. The one who bears the mark shall awaken, and the world will know their name." Whispers spread through the bloodlines like wildfire. The elders scrambled to interpret the signs, their eyes locked upon the stars for further confirmation. The awakening was not a mere promise, it was an unfolding reality. And with each passing day, the sacred scrolls of destiny pulsed with renewed light, as if anticipating the arrival of the one for whom it was written. The world began to shift in subtle ways. Alignments of stars not seen for millennia, whispers of energy flickering through the ley lines of the earth, and movements within the bloodlines that signaled the beginning of something monumental. Across continents, the descendants of the ancestral pact were stirred from their dormancy, each called to gather in secret conclaves, away from prying eyes and digital surveillance. This was the convergence of power, a ritual that had been foretold since the dawn of the prophecy. In the marble halls of ancient estates and beneath the stone arches of forgotten temples, the chosen families assembled. Their presence was a testament to their legacy. Faces that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, eyes that had seen the turning of ages. The elders moved with purpose, their footsteps echoing through candlelit chambers as symbols of their bloodlines were etched into stone and traced with sacred oils. For this was not just a gathering, it was a summoning. Scrolls were unrolled, and symbols were drawn with precision and reverence. The codex of the First Awakening was brought forth, its pages shimmering with latent energy. Rituals were performed, invoking the names of their ancestors and calling upon the divine connection that linked their bloodlines to the prophecy. It was a binding of power, a fusion of ancient energy meant to protect and prepare the way for the chosen one's emergence. There were whispers among the elders that this convergence was different. Signs had been clearer, stronger, mirroring those recorded in the sacred scrolls of destiny. The ley lines had surged with energy, manifesting in ways that had not been seen for generations. Elders spoke of lights that danced across the skies, of symbols that appeared on sacred grounds without warning. To them, it was clear. The time of awakening was upon them. Yet, with power came danger. Shadows moved beyond the firelight, unseen yet felt by those sensitive to the shifting energies. The Council of Shadows had been watching, their agents dispatched to observe, infiltrate, and, if necessary, disrupt the bloodline's preparation. Their fear was palpable. The prophecy's fulfillment meant an end to their grasp on secrecy and influence. They would stop at nothing to prevent the convergence from reaching its culmination. But the bloodlines pressed forward, unwavering. The ritual was sealed with a final incantation, spoken in unison by the elders. The air grew heavy, pulsing with energy that rippled outward, a silent call that could be felt by those destined to awaken. The convergence of power had begun, and the world would soon feel its tremors. In the heart of an ancient citadel, hidden deep within the Carpathian Mountains, the elders of the bloodlines gathered for the final oath. The walls of the chamber were lined with symbols etched into the stone by hands long turned to dust. Torches flickered with a cold, ethereal flame, casting elongated shadows that danced with every whisper. This was the place of binding, where vows were made that transcended mortal lifetimes, sealed in blood and spirit. The eldest among them, a woman whose eyes had seen nearly a century of secrets, stepped forward, clutching the ceremonial blade in her hands. Its surface was inscribed with markings that pulsed with faint light, humming with ancient energy. She raised it above the stone altar at the center of the room, her voice echoing off the cold walls as she recited the words passed down through generations. "We who guard the path, we who bear the mark, bind ourselves to the oath eternal," she intoned, her voice carrying the weight of ages. Around her, The members of the Bloodlines raised their hands, palms facing upward. It was a gesture of surrender, of offering, an acknowledgement of their place in the prophecy that had shaped their fates since birth. One by one, they approached the altar, offering a single drop of blood upon its surface. The altar glowed with each offering, the markings on the blade intensifying with every crimson drop. It was not merely symbolic. The ritual bound their essence to the prophecy, strengthening the connection to the Chosen One. As the last elder approached, the air grew heavy, thick with the hum of energy. She placed her hand upon the altar, her fingers trembling not from age, but from the power that surged beneath her touch. "The final oath is sealed," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "We are bound to protect the awakening. Through shadow and light, through secrecy and revelation, we will endure." The torches flared in unison, casting the room in blinding light. Symbols burned brighter along the stone walls, illuminating scriptures that had been unreadable for centuries. A low rumble coursed through the ground, vibrating with the energy of the pact. Outside, the skies darkened as if acknowledging the ritual, lightning cracking across the horizon despite the absence of clouds. The air was thick with anticipation, charged with an energy that rippled through the hidden sanctuaries of the Bloodlines. Across continents, whispers of the prophecy's fulfillment spread like wildfire. Elders gathered in sacred chambers, their eyes turned skyward as celestial alignments signaled the moment they had awaited for generations. In hidden temples and shadowed estates, the preparations had been made. All that remained was the unveiling, the emergence of the Chosen One. Far beneath the surface of an ancient monastery, sealed away from the eyes of the unworthy, the codex of the First Awakening lay upon its stone altar, glowing with an unearthly light. The elders stood in silence, hands clasped before them, their breaths held as if afraid to disrupt the fragile stillness. Symbols carved into the walls began to shimmer, pulsating in rhythm with an unseen force. It was as if the very air vibrated with the heartbeat of destiny. The eldest among them stepped forward, his voice a mere whisper, as he recited the incantation passed down through the ages. Through the blood, the light is born. Through the light, the path is revealed. And through the path, the One shall rise. His words hung in the air, shimmering like embers before dissolving into silence. A soft hum resonated from the codex, growing louder until it filled the entire chamber. The light intensified, casting sharp beams across the stone walls, illuminating symbols that had long been hidden from mortal eyes. Among them, the name of Yeshua glowed brighter than the rest, entwined with the symbols of the Chosen One. The elders exchanged glances of awe and understanding. Yeshua had been more than just a bearer of divine wisdom. His legacy was woven into the very essence of the prophecy. His bloodline had been the first, the origin from which the others had emerged. Suddenly, the light expanded, reaching up to the ceiling where a sigil appeared, one they had only read about in ancient texts. It marked the awakening, the final sign that the Chosen One would emerge. The elders bowed their heads, their voices rising in unison as they recited the sacred verses of protection and guidance. Outside, the winds howled, bending the trees and shaking the earth as if the world itself acknowledged the shift in power.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.